If you're a creative and you have ever had a client interested in your content, you need to get them on a sales call. Now, I know you probably just heard that and you thought to yourself, well, I don't want to do a sales call because I don't even know how to do sales and I don't want to come off slimy and yada, yada, yada. And to be honest, most creatives shy away from sales because they want to be creative. They don't want to do businessy kind of things. And to be honest, I completely relate and understand that because I am a creative myself. And I originally got into this business because I wanted to shoot for brands. I didn't want to be on a phone call convincing them to buy my service. But it wasn't until I learned how to do sales that I was able to land more consistent and higher paying clients like Westin, Four Seasons, Marriott, and a whole lot of other ones. So that's ultimately why I'm making this video, because I want to help creatives understand the business side of content creation so they can go out and live the lifestyle they've always dreamed of. Today, I'm breaking down my entire sales framework that you can basically copy and paste and use for yourself. But if you're interested in the entire process of making content creation a full-time career, you can check out the link in the description below because I got a full training that breaks down the entire process. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. So the first thing is you don't want to think of your sales call as sales, because when you think of sales, you usually think of like a stiff business dude that's wearing the tie and is like real professional and like not having any fun and like really to the point and using all these persuasion tactics and whatnot. That's not what you want to think of. In fact, what sales is really just helping the customer make the right decision for themselves. And if that's working with you, then great. If it's not, then you're going to help them make that decision. And we do this by telling a story. Every story has a timeline of events, and a sales call is no different. A sales call is really just a timeline. So on this timeline, we have point A, which is where the client is unsatisfied. It's where they're currently at. Maybe they don't like their results that they're getting for whatever reason, and they want to get to point B over here, which is where they're stoked with the results. They're stoked with the process that we took them through, and ultimately they're a happy camper, right? But how do we take them from point A to point B? Well, that's where we talk about our offer, and that is just the vehicle that takes them from here to here. And that is ultimately all a sales call is. So you don't even need to implement like psychological manipulation or persuasion hacks or any kind of stuff like that. Like honestly, if you're good, you don't even need to do those things, which if you're watching this video and you do the reps and you practice, then you will be good. So you don't even have to worry about this. All it is a 4-step process. This entire framework can be summed up into 4 points. And that is number 1, frame. So we're going to frame the call and the direction and everything. Number 2 is pain. We're going to really allow the customer to kind of feel the pain and wallow and marinate in it. Number 3 is we're going to figure out what their aim is. What's their goal? Where are they trying to get to? And number 4 is deal. We're going to help them close the deal and make a decision for themselves. So to be honest, I've never seen a video like this on YouTube or the internet in general. So if you want to learn how to sell as a content creator, make sure to hit the like button on this video because I'm giving it to you for free. So step number 1 is to frame the call. And really our goal here is just to establish our authority, to establish some confidence, to establish the direction of the call, and most importantly, establish that a decision needs to be made by the end of the call. So I'll go ahead and break down each of those real quick, but before I do, I just want to make this point very, very clear that you only have about 4 seconds at the beginning of the call to set the authority, to set the confidence, and just to set the stage for the call. So if you're showing up and you're stiff and you're kind of not confident and you're quiet and kind of clammed up, then that's going to set the tone for the call, and the customer or the client likely won't be confident in spending money with you because you aren't even confident in having the call with them, right? So practicing this and really getting the reps in front of the mirror or maybe in front of a friend or whatever to be able to actually confidently have this conversation is very, very important. And you only get better with reps. So take this script that I'm showing you and practice it. So that being said, let's jump into what this actually looks like. So usually I'll start with about 30 seconds to a minute of small talk. So this is just asking them, how they are, how their day is, where they're from, stuff like that. And typically, 30 seconds to a minute is just fine. At this point, you'll start to see that the call slowly gets to a pause, which is a perfect transition point for you to jump into the purpose of the call. So you can just ask them something like, hey, if you're good to go, I don't want to waste any of your time. I want to jump right in. Is it cool if we get started? At which point they'll say yes. And then you can go ahead and transition into the meat of the call. So when you transition, really you want to establish the direction and the fact that they're going to make a decision. And typically I'll use a line, something to the effect of this. I'll usually say something to the effect of something like, okay, awesome. So our goal with this call is really to get clarity for both you and me on what your goal is and kind of where you're at currently. And more importantly, how we can actually get you from where you're at currently to that goal and help you make a decision that makes sense for you. And if that's working with me, then great. If it's not working with me, if it's doing something else, then and that's completely fine. No hard feelings. But at the end of this call, we're gonna have a decision. Just want to make sure that's cool with you. So at that point, typically they'll just say yes. I've never had anyone say no before, and you can just move on to step number 2, which is establishing their pain. So sometimes people will tell you this right out the gate, but we always want to dig further in. So typically I'll start out this section by asking a question like, so what even inspired you to have this call with me in the first place? And typically they'll give you a response like, oh, we needed a website video, or we needed some product photos, or we needed to, have some more videos on our Instagram or something like that. And typically that is just a band-aid solution to what the problem actually is. So we actually need to dig further into why they actually want this. So the next follow-up question, once you understand that, is asking them, okay, cool. So you need a website video. Why do you think that you need the website video? And not asking in a condescending way, but more so like curious. Like, I'm just curious. Why do you think that you need that? And then getting them to actually give you the answer of why they need it, which will help you have insight into what their needs are even more. And as they're telling you this, you want to be taking notes. So typically I'll have like a Google Docs on the side, and I'll just be taking notes on the side as they're telling me this. So once they tell me why they are looking to have the certain content produced, I'll typically do a series of questions that may be a version of what I'm about to share. Feel free to use these questions if you want. If you don't want to and you have something else, that's totally fine, but these are just ones that I've used that work for me. So I'll usually ask things like, what have you done in the past in regards to content marketing? What methods have you tried? What kind of strategy have you tried? Where does content fit into your overall marketing strategy? How long have you been trying it for? Because sometimes people have only been doing it for 2 weeks, and like you're not really going to see results in 2 weeks. So understanding where they're at in terms of that, and then ultimately trying to nail down why whatever they're currently doing hasn't worked. And when you ask this question, they basically self-diagnose themselves and set themselves up for you to be able to sell your offer, because they're going to tell you exactly why they haven't done this themselves, which you can then flip on them and be able to use in the future. So at this point, we're going to have our Google Doc on the side, or maybe our notepad, and we're going to be able to identify at least 2 to 3, maybe even 4 problems or pain points that the customer has, and we want to articulate this back to them. And if you can use pretty similar language that they told you, that just showcases that you're listening, and people really love to see that somebody that they're talking to is actually listening to them. It makes you just feel likable. It also builds your authority and builds your confidence as a salesperson. So I'll have those 3 or 4 different pain points that I see, and I'll articulate them back to them, and then I'll verify. I say, does this sound like it's right? Am I missing anything? And at this point, they'll either say, yeah, that's spot on, or they might say, no, you're actually missing this, and then they'll add something else. And at that point, you want to re-articulate that back to them until you've come to a full understanding of all of their problem points, and they have an understanding that you understand them. Once you understand all their problem points, we can move on to step number 3, which is aim. We want to understand their goal and why they want to hit that goal. So this is less about tactics and more about emotions, because people buy based on emotions and they justify it with logic. So if we can get to the why behind why they want the goal, then it makes it much easier to sell them on the end result. So here's just a few questions that I like to ask in this phase just to kind of get the juices flowing. Again, feel free to use these if you want. If not, that's totally fine. But I'll typically ask like, what are your business goals for the next quarter or for the next year, just depending on what the company is. And usually that'll be anywhere from what their financial goals are to how much content they want to have on their Instagram per month to we just need this video for this reason, right? So it might be a range of different things, but just honing down what that is for them and how this content relates to that goal. The second question is asking them how much time either they or their team wants to personally invest into the success of this goal. Because a lot of times people contact you because they know that the goal needs to be done, but they don't have the time themselves. So if you can get them to admit that they don't have the time or the resources or the expertise themselves, then that helps you have even more ammo in order to be able to close the deal in the future. So once you get an idea for what their goal is, their dream situation, then you can dive deep into why do they want this goal to happen. And sometimes it might be, a personal goal. Maybe they get a bonus if they make X amount of money for the company in excess of what they already did. Sometimes it might be a company goal, it just kind of depends, but understanding the why of why they want to do it is very, very important. And then a follow-up question to this would be, what would achieving this goal do for you personally or do for the company? And kind of understanding the motivation behind why they're doing this goal becomes very important in terms of being able to actually close the deal in the future. And then lastly, sometimes people will be like, yeah, I know I need to do this, this, and this, and the other thing and all this. And they kind of like self-diagnose themselves, almost kind of like trying to back out of the sale. And at this point, you can be like, okay, so I understand that you know that you have to do all these things and you aren't wrong. Like you do have to do all these things, but I'm just kind of curious, why haven't you done them before? And at that point, they'll have to come to terms with, there's a reason that they have not done this. Either it's that they don't know how, they don't have enough time, they don't have the resources, whatever whatever it might be, but there's a reason they haven't done this. And that is the exact reason that they are talking to you. So now you have that in order to be able to close. So at this point, after talking to them, you understand their pain points and you also understand what their goals are. In most cases, if a company is reaching out to you, they'll probably be a fit for you to be able to make this offer to. Very rarely will it be like not a fit at all, unless they're just obviously not interested in all that stuff, which in that case, you can just be like, hey, I don't want to waste any more of your time. To be honest, I don't know if I can serve you here. So it might be best that you go in a different direction and then you can kind of just close the call that way. But in most cases, they probably will be a fit. So that's when you can move on to step number 4, which is the deal phase. So in the deal phase, we are presenting an offer, which if you are unsure of how to create an offer, definitely check out this video because I go super in depth in how to do that. So assuming they're a fit, typically I'll say something to this effect. I'll say something like, in talking to you and seeing your pain points, you struggle with these things. And, I understand that these are your goals and you'll kind of name them out specifically. I know, and be very, very confident in that. I know that I can get you, insert their desired result, insert their goal right there, if you allow me to help you out and to help work with you. So just as an example, it might sound something like this. In talking to you, I definitely hear your concern with being more consistent with Reels and not really having enough options to use as ads and all that kind of stuff. I know that can be a struggle. I know that the goal is to be able to get better ROI on your ads and to be able to have a more consistent flow of organic content as well. Totally hear you on that. And I can help you do that. I know that I can get you more consistent and I know that I can get you more options that'll get you a far better ROI than what you currently have. Now, would you be interested in hearing how we can actually make that happen for you? So that's kind of an example of how you can frame that. And at that point, they're either going to say no, which most likely they won't, or they'll say yes, and they'll be ready to move on. And at this point, this is where you present your offer. So when you present your offer, you want to make sure that you've practiced this quite a bit in the past. This isn't really going to change at all, client to client. You may have a few different offers that you kind of fluctuate between, but for the most part, you want to know exactly what your offer is and how you frame it. You want to be clear, you want to be concise, and you want to be as short as you possibly can. So if we're using the Reels offer from that video that I referenced just earlier, then it might look something like this. After we use that transition phase, after they say yes, we could say something like, so I know that you want to be very consistent with Reels. So what we can do is we can offer you 20 Reels on a monthly basis. Now I know that's not every day, but it's going to be the most budget-friendly option for you to be consistent, but even more importantly, have a lot of options to use organically to see what works well, and then be able to boost only the ones that perform well organically, which allows you to get a far higher ROI than you already currently have. Does that sound like a good way to help you be consistent while also helping you boost your ROI? At which point they'll probably say yes, or if they have any concerns, they might actually say it. Or in most cases, they'll be like, yeah, that sounds great, but how much does it cost? Which is when you drop the price. And the main thing here is you have to be very, very confident and you have to stick with your pricing. No discounts, no kind of backing up and defending yourself. You have to be very, very confident with your pricing, which by the way, if you're interested in learning how to price yourself, you can check out this video here. It goes super in depth, but don't leave until you're done with this video. So once they say that the package sounds good, then you'll say something like this. For a package like this, 20 Reels a month with the option to run some as paid ads, I charge X amount. And we pause and we just wait for them to respond. And I know it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel long. It might only be 5 seconds, but it might feel like an eternity. But I promise you, if you let them respond instead of defending yourself or justifying the price or doing any of that, you will have a much better chance at closing the deal. Trust me. So you say the price, you pause, and at this point, they're going to come up with either one of 3 responses. Either one, best case scenario, they're like, okay, great, that's awesome, let's do it. And at that point, you just send them the contract, send them the invoice, and then you're good to go. And you do the project and you can go through your whole process. Best case scenario, right? But more than likely, they're going to fall in camp 2 or 3. 2 is that they are interested, but they have some questions or objections. And 3 is that they're just not interested at all. They're thrown off by the price. And at that point, you just kindly let them off the phone. You don't say anything mean to them. You just say, hey, I don't know if this is going to be a fit. I don't want to waste any more of your time. And that's okay. And you let them go. But if they fall in the second camp where they have questions or objections, then they might have questions all over the place, all kinds of different things. But typically all objections fall into one of 3 categories. And those categories are number 1, price, number 2, uncertainty, and number 3, either they have a team member or a partner that they have to discuss it with. So let's go ahead and break down all 3. So the first one is price. And this is actually the easiest to overcome because most clients will have either cash on hand or they'll have access to cash, especially if you can position your offer as an ROI offer, meaning they spend $5,000 with you, they make 50 grand, that's a 10x ROI and they're going to make money. So they will find a way to get the cash cash to be able to invest to make that ROI. It just makes sense. But sometimes you'll come across clients that are price shopping where they'll be like, yeah, thanks for the quote, really appreciate it, but we're talking to a few other videographers and we're just kind of get back to you if it works for us, which is code for we're not going to get back to you and you are not hired. So before they jump off the phone, you need to address this objection. So I'll typically say something to this effect. I'll be like, I totally understand that price is a factor for you guys, but I'm just curious, is finding the cheapest price or is having the best product and the best results the most priority for you guys? Because you're a high quality brand, and as I'm sure you know, you kind of get what you pay for. So I'm just kind of curious, what is your goal here? Is it to get the cheapest price or is it to get the best results? And then you wait and you pause and you wait for their answer, which at this point, they'll either insist on asking for more quotes, which that is just code for we're not interested. At that point, you just let them off the call and that's totally fine. Or they'll give you the real reason, which most likely is not actually the price, but is actually uncertainty. So the uncertainty objection is basically that they are unsure that your service will actually work for them. Now, ideally throughout the call, you're going to be establishing that authority and that confidence in your service and in your delivery so that they'll have that instilled subconsciously in them. But if they still have concern of if it's actually going to work for them, you can actually start calling in the reinforcements. And what I mean by that is that you can start sharing case studies, which a lot of creatives hear the word case studies and they immediately think, I'm going to show them my portfolio. And that's not the case. What we actually want to do is we want to show them examples of results that we've gotten for clients. Not necessarily just the photos, like photos are great or the videos are great, but we want to showcase the results. Like, hey, they put this on their website and they got X more bookings. Or, they changed this product photo on their website and their sales increased by X percentage. So we don't necessarily want to show just pictures or just videos that we did for a client. We more so want to show the results that those photos got for them. So we could say, we made these reels for this client, but it got them this many more followers. Or we could say, we did this product photo for the client, they switched it out and their sales increased by X percent. So if we can show numbers like that, which goes into the whole building your offer thing, if we can show numbers like that, then that kind of reinforces the idea that they're not just buying pretty pictures or a pretty video, they're actually buying a business result that'll get an ROI. At that point, typically you only need one case study. They might ask for more. If you have more, you can share them, but ultimately it just comes down to, do they want to work with you or not? And you kind of just got to guide them to make that decision. Now, the last and final objection is that they either have to talk to their business partner or they have to talk to their team before making a decision. And this oftentimes happens when you're dealing with more bigger corporations where maybe you're talking to the marketing manager, but they have to get it approved through finance or through the GM or whatever it might be. They have to have a discussion with the team of some sort in order to be able to get approval so that they can actually work with you. So sometimes it's unavoidable. Again, like if you're dealing with a corporation with multiple different ladders, multiple different departments, sometimes it's just unavoidable, but you can handle that objection in two ways. The first way is that you need to be able to make sure that you've handled all the questions that you possibly can while you're still on the phone. So just ask them if they have any more questions or if there's any questions that the team might have that you can answer right away, and make sure that you include those in a proposal. Typically, I'll just use a proposal template that I have. I'll just switch out the name and just, if I have multiple offers, I'll just make sure that I have the right offer there. But so they have a visual that they can present to their team. That's very important. The second thing is that you want to make sure that you set a clear time and date to reconvene. So say you're meeting on a Monday, say that's great that you have to meet with the team. How does next Monday work for, reconvening and just kind of nailing down a decision on this? And at that point, they'll either say, yeah, that works, or, we need more time, or, whatever, but make sure that you get them to commit to book another call with you to make that decision, because that is very important. Because if you don't do that, then they can just kind of go off into the ether, never respond to you again, and you just lost the sale. So very important. So ultimately, that is the entire sales framework. I hope this video was super valuable for you. If it was, I have a bunch of other videos on my channel about the tactical business side of content creation, so you'll definitely want to check those out. Also, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It would mean a lot to me, and it would also get these videos out to a whole lot of other content creators like yourself. And lastly, if you are interested in learning more about how to make this content creation a full-time career for yourself, you can check out the free training in the link below, where I detail my 4-step process to be able to go from 0 to 6 figures a year as a content creator. And it's super, super valuable, absolutely free. Check out the link in the description below. But aside from that, I cannot wait to see you in the next one.